I'm Charlie Munger. I'm 99 years old, and I've made a lot of money in my life, about $2.5 billion to be precise. But here's something that might surprise you. I drove a 2006 Honda Accord for 13 years, paid $21,000 for it, drove it until 2019. And you know what? That decision, that one simple decision to drive a modest car, probably made me richer by several $1 million over my lifetime. Now, I know what you're thinking. Charlie, you're a billionaire. What do you care about saving money on a car? And that's exactly the wrong way to think about it. I didn't become a billionaire by ignoring small decisions. I became a billionaire because I understood that small decisions compound into life-changing consequences. Every dollar you spend unwisely today is really $100 you won't have in retirement. And nowhere is this principle more brutally obvious than with cars. Let me be blunt. If you're buying a car on your salary, especially if you're financing it, you're committing financial suicide. You just don't know it yet. The effects won't show up for 20 or 30 years, but by then it'll be too late. You'll be 65 years old, looking at a retirement account with $200,000 in it when you need $2 million, and you'll wonder where it all went wrong. I'll tell you where it went wrong. It drove away at 15 miles per gallon. Let me tell you about a mistake I made early in my career. It was 1955. I was 31 years old, practicing law in Los Angeles. I was doing well, making about $50,000 a year, which was good money back then. I thought I deserved something nice. So I bought a brand new Buick. Cost me $3,200. That's about $36,000 in today's dollars. And I felt like a big shot driving it off the lot. But here's what I didn't calculate at the time, because I was young and stupid. That $3,200, if I had invested it in a decent portfolio of stocks instead, would have compounded at roughly 10% per year. By 2023, that single $3,200 would have grown to approximately $4.2 million. One car, one decision, $4.2 million. That Buick didn't just cost me $3,200. It cost me my children's inheritance. That was the last brand new car I ever bought. After I did that math, I realized something that most people never figure out. A car is not an asset. It's a liability that depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot. In fact, it's worse than most liabilities because it tricks you into thinking you're building wealth when you're actually destroying it. People say, I need a car to get to work. Sure, but you don't need a $60,000 car to get to work. A $15,000 used car gets you to the exact same office, and the $45,000 difference, properly invested, becomes $1.2 million over 30 years. Let me break down the real cost of a car, because most people have no idea what they're actually spending. Let's take a typical scenario. Nothing fancy, just a normal American buying a normal car. Say you buy a $50,000 car. Not a luxury vehicle, just a decent mid-size sedan. Most people can't pay cash, so they finance it. Let's say you put 20% down, that's $10,000, and finance the remaining $40,000 over 5 years at 7% interest, which is about average these days. Your monthly payment is $792. Over 5 years, you'll pay $47,520 in payments, plus your $10,000 down payment. That's $57,520 total. But wait, we're not done. Not even close. Now let's talk about insurance. If you're financing a car, you need comprehensive coverage. That's going to run you about $1,800 per year, maybe more if you're young. Over 5 years, that's $9,000. Now we're at $66,520. Then there's maintenance and repairs. New cars don't need much at first, but they still need oil changes, tire rotations, new tires eventually, brake pads, maybe a few unexpected repairs. Conservative estimate, $1,000 per year. That's another $5,000 over 5 years. We're up to $71,520. And we haven't even put gas in the thing yet. If you drive 12,000 miles per year and get 25 miles per gallon, at $4 per gallon, you're spending $1,920 per year on gas. Over 5 years, that's $9,600. Now we're at $81,120. Don't forget registration fees and taxes. Depending on your state, that could be $500 to $1,000 per year. Let's say $750. Over 5 years, that's $3,750. Total cost, $84,870 for a $50,000 car. But remember, after 5 years, that car isn't worth $50,000 anymore. It's worth maybe $25,000 if you're lucky. So you spent $84,870 to own something worth $25,000. You lost $59,870 in 5 years. That's $11,974 per year, or $998 per month, just to drive a depreciating hunk of metal around. But even that doesn't capture the real cost, because here's what nobody tells you. The real cost isn't what you spent, it's what you didn't earn. Economists call this opportunity cost. And it's the most important concept in personal finance that almost nobody understands. Every dollar you spend on a car is a dollar you can't invest. And that dollar invested properly grows. Let's say instead of buying that $50,000 car, you bought a $15,000 used car. Still reliable, still gets you to work, just not as shiny. You invest the $35,000 difference in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. Historically, the stock market returns about 10% per year. After 10 years, that $35,000 becomes $90,795. After 20 years, it's $235,437. After 30 years, it's $610,764. That's the real cost of your car decision. You didn't just spend an extra $35,000. You gave up $610,764 in retirement savings. And that's assuming you only make this mistake once. Most people don't buy one car in their lifetime. They buy 10 or 12. And they always buy more than they need. I see it everywhere I look. Guy making $80,000 a year driving a $60,000 truck. Why? I need it for work. No, you don't. You need it for your ego. There's a reason why the average American retires with less than $200,000 saved, and it's parked in their driveway. Let me tell you what I did instead. After that Buick mistake in 1955, I made a rule for myself. I would never buy a car I couldn't pay cash for. If I couldn't write a check for the full amount without flinching, I couldn't afford the car. Period. This rule did two things. First, it forced me to live below my means. Second, it eliminated interest payments entirely. Do you know how much money Americans waste on car loan interest? About $200 billion per year. That's money going to banks for the privilege of driving a depreciating asset. It's insane. My second rule, never buy new. Why would I pay for 20% depreciation the moment I drive off the lot? Let some other sucker take that hit. I bought cars that were 2 or 3 years old, gently used, well-maintained. I'd pay 40 to 50% less than the new price, and the car was practically identical. People say, but Charlie, what about the warranty? The warranty cost you $15,000 in depreciation. I'll take my chances with a $1,500 repair bill, thank you very much. My third rule, drive it until it's dead. I don't mean until it's inconvenient, I mean until it's actually not worth repairing anymore. Most people trade in their cars every 3 to 5 years. Why? Because they're bored. Because they want something new. because their neighbor bought a new car and now they feel inadequate. This is exactly the kind of psychological weakness that keeps people poor. I drove my cars for 10, 12, 15 years. My 2006 Honda Accord, I drove from 2006 to 2019, 13 years. Total cost of ownership over 13 years, maybe $40,000 including purchase, maintenance, insurance, everything. That's $3,076 per year. Compare that to someone who leases a new $70,000 car every 3 years. They're spending $23,333 per year, not including insurance and maintenance. That's $20,257 more per year than I was spending, every single year. Over 30 years, that's $607,710. Properly invested at 10% returns, that's $11.1 million. This is why I say buying a car on your salary is financial suicide, because that's not an exaggeration. It literally kills your financial future. You just don't feel the pain until it's too late. Now let me tell you about my neighbor. I won't use his real name, but let's call him Bob. Bob was an engineer, smart guy, made about $120,000 a year, solid upper middle class income. But Bob loved cars. Always had the latest BMW or Mercedes. Traded up every 3 years. Always had a payment. I'd see him washing his car in the driveway and I'd think, Bob, you're washing away your retirement. I calculated it once, just for fun. Over his 40-year career, Bob probably spent $800,000 on cars, maybe more. Between purchases, leases, insurance, maintenance, the works. I spent maybe $150,000 total on transportation in the same period. That's a $650,000 difference. Now, if Bob had invested that difference, $650,000 spread over 40 years, at a conservative 10% annual return, do you know what he'd have? About $12.4 million. Instead, he has a leased BMW that he doesn't even own. Bob retired at 67, still making car payments. His net worth is probably around $900,000, mostly home equity. I retired at 62. My net worth by that age was over $100 million. Now, obviously, I had some other advantages. I was a good investor. I partnered with Warren Buffett. I made some smart business decisions. But the car thing, that was symbolic of a deeper pattern. Bob spent his life trying to look rich. I spent my life trying to be rich. Those are opposite strategies, and they lead to opposite outcomes. Here's what people don't understand. Buying an expensive car doesn't make you rich. It makes you look rich while making you poorer. Truly wealthy people don't care about looking wealthy. We care about being wealthy. There's a reason Warren Buffett drives a Cadillac XTS that he bought a decade ago. There's a reason Jeff Bezos drove a Honda Accord when he was worth $10 billion. These aren't coincidences. Rich people understand that cars are tools, not status symbols. Poor people think cars are investments. Middle-class people think cars are necessities. Wealthy people know cars are expenses to be minimized. Now, I can already hear the objections. But Charlie, I need a reliable car. I can't afford for it to break down. Okay, fine. Buy a 3-year-old Toyota Camry or Honda Accord. They're insanely reliable, cheap to maintain, and cost half what they did new. Problem solved. But I have kids. I need something safe. Modern used cars have excellent safety ratings. You don't need a brand new $65,000 SUV to keep your kids safe. You need functioning seat belts and airbags, which every car made in the last 15 years has. But I drive a lot for work. Then buy something fuel efficient and cheap to maintain. Still doesn't require a new car. The truth is 90% of car buying decisions have nothing to do with transportation and everything to do with ego. People buy cars to impress other people, to feel successful, to project an image. And I understand that impulse. I'm human. I've felt it too. But I trained myself to recognize it and reject it. Because here's the thing. Nobody actually cares what you drive. Your coworkers might notice your new car for about 3 days. Then they forget about it. Meanwhile, you're stuck with the payment for 5 years. You know who's impressed by your expensive car? Other people who are bad with money. That's it. Your wealthy neighbors aren't impressed. They're wondering why you're wasting money. Your broke friends are impressed, but their opinion doesn't help you retire. The bank is thrilled because you're paying them interest. The car salesman is happy because he made a commission. But nobody who matters cares. And in 30 years, when you can't afford to retire, that BMW won't seem so impressive anymore. Let me give you my rule for when you can buy a car. Not a new car, I still don't recommend that, but when you can afford to upgrade from a beater. Here's the rule. You can buy a car when your investments can pay for it. What do I mean? Simple. Let's say you want to buy a $30,000 car. At a conservative 6% dividend yield, you'd need $500,000 in dividend-paying stocks to generate $30,000 per year in passive income. So the rule is, build your investment portfolio to $500,000 first. Then, and only then, can you use 1 year's worth of dividends to buy the car. Not before. Because if you buy the car before you have the investments, you're stealing from your future self. You're taking money that could compound at 10% per year and spending it on something that depreciates at 15% per year. That's not a purchase. That's financially suicidal behavior. Most people have this exactly backward. They buy the expensive car first, thinking it'll motivate them to earn more money. It doesn't work that way. The car payment becomes a trap. You can't afford to take risks because you need to make the payment. You can't invest because all your spare money goes to the car. You're stuck on a treadmill, working to maintain a lifestyle that prevents you from building wealth. I've watched this pattern destroy hundreds of people financially. Smart people, hard-working people, people who could have been millionaires if they'd just driven a cheaper car. The mathematics of this are absolutely brutal, and most people never run the numbers. Let me give you one more scenario that might wake you up. Imagine two people, both starting their careers at age 25, both making $60,000 per year. Person A buys a $35,000 car, finances it, trades it in every 5 years for another $35,000 car. Person B buys a $12,000 used car, pays cash, drives it for 12 years, then replaces it with another $12,000 used car. Over a 40-year career, Person A will spend approximately $280,000 on cars. Person B will spend approximately $40,000. That's a $240,000 difference. If Person B invests that difference over 40 years at 10% returns, they'll have an additional $10.6 million at retirement. Same income, same career. One drives fancier cars. The other retires with $10 million more. Which would you rather be? And here's the kicker. Person B's quality of life wasn't worse. They still got to work. They still went on vacations. They still picked up their kids from school. The car didn't make Person A happier. Studies show that people adapt to new cars within about 3 months. After that, it provides zero additional happiness. So Person A spent $240,000 over their lifetime for 3 months of novelty every 5 years. That's $240,000 for 48 months of temporary excitement spread over 40 years. Meanwhile, Person B spent that money on 40 years of financial security and eventually complete financial freedom. I'm 99 years old. I've been wealthy for a very long time, and I can tell you from experience, the feeling of financial security is better than the feeling of driving a nice car. It's not even close. Financial security means you can't be fired. You can't be pushed around. You can't be forced to do things you don't want to do. You have options. You have freedom. That's what wealth actually is, freedom. And every dollar you waste on a depreciating car is a dollar you're not spending on freedom. So here's my advice, and I'm giving it to you for free. Though people have paid me millions over the years for similar advice, don't buy a car on your salary. Save up. Buy used. Pay cash. Drive it forever. Take the difference between what you would have spent on car payments and invest it in a simple, low-cost index fund. Don't touch it for 30 years. And when you're my age, you'll be the one giving advice instead of the one struggling to pay bills. I know this advice isn't sexy. It's not fun. It doesn't feel good to drive a 10-year-old Honda Civic when your buddy just bought a new Tesla. But you know what feels good? Looking at your investment account when you're 55 and seeing $7 million in it. That feels good. Being able to retire early because you don't need to work anymore? That feels good. Telling your boss to go to hell because you have enough money to walk away? That feels amazing. And none of that happens if you're spending $800 a month on a car payment for your entire working life. The choice is yours. You can drive a nice car and work until you're 70, or you can drive a modest car and retire at 55. Both are perfectly fine choices. Just make sure you understand what you're choosing, because most people don't. They think they're choosing a car. They're actually choosing poverty, and by the time they realize it, it's too late to fix. Don't be that person. Be smarter. Think longer term. And for God's sake, stop buying cars